Tonight, gearing up for another postal strike. The clock ticks down to a possible labor disruption.
The last one had a massive impact.
The union put some changes forward to the employer, and the employer walked away.
How soon could workers walk out? The 2-hour call between Trump and Putin with a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire on the line.
We're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up. What a shame that it ever started in the first place.
What the president is saying about new negotiations. Plus, a cross-Canada travel boom.
The Canadian business is up like we've never seen before.
Where tourists are planning to spend their summer dollars. And a different kind of neighborhood superhero.
I just want to come out and enjoy my time picking garbage up.
The man who is considered super by simply helping others.
It lifted my mood. Think about something else besides yourself and your own problems.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Heather Butts.
Good evening. We begin with a developing story tonight and more bad news for anyone relying on steady service from Canada Post. The union representing 55,000 postal workers has presented a strike notice to Canada Post with operations poised to shut down Friday at midnight. In a statement, the union saying this step was taken in part to respond to the employer's recent indication that it may unilaterally change working conditions and suspend employee benefits. Canada Post says another work stoppage for the second time in 6 months would be devastating.
The last one had a massive impact, hundreds of millions of dollars on Canada Post. That one came at Christmas. Another one would just be debilitating. And we're already losing $1 billion a year and had to have a bailout from the government. We need to turn the page.
And the union put some changes forward to the employer, and the employer walked away. And we asked if they were coming back last week, and they said, well, if not this week, next week. Well, they know we're up against a deadline this week coming.
Word of the impending work stoppage comes on the heels of a report released last week calling on Canada Post to stop daily door-to-door residential mail delivery and shutter more rural post offices in order to survive. The leaders of Canada, the United Kingdom and France warning tonight that their countries will take action, including possible sanctions, if Israel does not stop a renewed military offensive in Gaza and lift aid restrictions. In a joint statement, they said, "We have always supported Israel's right to defend Israelis against terrorism, but this escalation is wholly disproportionate," adding they will not stand by while Netanyahu's government pursues these egregious actions. It goes on to say they oppose any attempts to expand settlements in the West Bank and will not hesitate to take further action, including targeted sanctions. The statement also calls the Israeli government's denial of humanitarian assistance to Gaza unacceptable. The statement came shortly after Israel said it would allow a limited amount of aid into Gaza following nearly 3 months of an Israeli blockade. In response to the three leaders, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said they were inviting more such atrocities as the one on October 7th. For more on this sharply worded joint statement, I want to bring in John Allen, former Canadian ambassador to Israel. Mr. Allen, what do you make of this statement and the message it sends?
It's an extremely important statement, very comprehensive. Some of the most critical language that I've seen come from governments towards Israel's actions. It talks about the siege. It talks about the threatened displacement of Gazans to the south, and it talks about disproportionate military action. And those are all war crimes or potential war crimes. So it's very serious criticism. It also restates the importance of the two-state solution and commits the three countries to recognizing Palestine as a state. So it's an important statement at this time, especially when the humanitarian situation and the number of lives being lost in Gaza is so significant.
Do you think this will make an impact, and how might Israel respond?
Well, I understand Prime Minister Netanyahu has already responded by saying that this is just going to contribute to more October 7th. I don't agree with that. Whether it will have an impact, I think, depends on whether other Western countries join in, as I hope they will. And the Nordics, the Australians, the New Zealanders, and many others, including the Germans, which would be important. And also the key will be whether President Trump decides that enough is enough. He's already spoken out about starvation of children in Gaza, but moving this war to an end, getting the hostages out would be extremely important.
Thank you for your insight, John. Former Canadian Ambassador to Israel, John Allen. Could a permanent ceasefire for the war in Ukraine be on the horizon? That's what many are wondering tonight after the U.S. president set up talks between Russia and Ukraine. CTV's Kamal Karmali takes us through the high-stakes phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin.
A 2-hour phone call today between the U.S. and Russian presidents to try and put an end to one of the bloodiest chapters of the war in Ukraine.
And I think some progress has been made. It's a terrible situation going on over there. We're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up.
According to U.S. President Donald Trump, Russia and Ukraine will now immediately start negotiations towards a ceasefire and ultimately an end to the war. Sharing details on a social media post, Trump said the conditions of a ceasefire would be negotiated between the two parties and that the tone and spirit of his phone conversation were excellent. After the war is over, Russia wants to do large-scale trade with the United States. Trump saying it's an opportunity to create massive amounts of jobs and wealth, and that Ukraine can also be a great beneficiary of trade.
The president has made it clear his goal is to see a ceasefire and to see this conflict come to an end. And he's grown weary and frustrated with both sides of the conflict.
With the Trump administration reaching its last straw.
We're going to try to end it, but if we can't end it, we're eventually going to say, you know what, that was worth a try, but we're not doing it anymore.
Trump said he informed several world leaders today of what was discussed, including Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky, who says he's open to a meeting with Russia, but urged the U.S. not to remove itself from the discussions. While Russian President Vladimir Putin said the call with Trump was informative and frank, adding both parties need to find compromises.
President Putin as well has called for ceasefires, but again, at every turn, he has broken each one of those ceasefires.
There's no timeline on when these negotiations could begin, but as to where, Trump says Pope Leo XIV has offered to host talks at the Vatican. Heather.
All right, thank you, Kamal. CTV's Kamal Karmali in Toronto. Former U.S. President Joe Biden speaking out on social media about his recently revealed cancer diagnosis. Posting a picture of himself and his wife Jill Biden on X earlier today with a message that reads, "Cancer touches us all. Like so many of you, Jill and I have learned that we are strongest in the broken places. Thank you for lifting us up with love and support." Biden's office revealed last night that he has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, which has metastasized to his bones. And there has been an outpouring of support, including from Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, posting this message on X today, saying, "President Biden, I'm thinking of you, the former First Lady, and your family today. You've always had a deep commitment to family and faith, and I'm hopeful that both will carry you through this." The ground search for 2 missing children in Nova Scotia has once again been called off. More than 100 volunteers combed through kilometers of woods over the weekend in the hopes of finding any sign of 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan. The siblings have been missing since May 2nd. The initial search for the kids was called off on May 7th. It was restarted Saturday. Now investigators and search managers will be reviewing and assessing the search to determine their next steps. Canada's tourism operators are forecasting a busy summer season, and their numbers are already up, especially in the Atlantic region. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth shows us how a reluctance to travel to the U.S. is taking Canadian and international visitors across our country.
Michelle Bilodeau is spending the day taking pictures along the Halifax waterfront, living the life of a tourist.
Last year, that was my bucket list item. I traveled, drove to all provinces, basically.
Born in Quebec, Bilodeau now lives in southern Ontario. He loves to travel within Canada and has chosen to suspend any trips to the U.S.
I don't feel like I'll be going for a while, for sure.
Bilodeau's travel habits fit a growing trend.
The Canadian business is up like we've never seen before. I mean, Canadians are traveling within Canada.
Because of the weak Canadian dollar, travelers from south of the border and abroad are also coming here in growing numbers.
The European business is way up as well because there's so many direct flights from to all over Europe into Halifax, and then they come to Halifax, but then they go all around the Maritimes and Atlantic Canada.
Dalhousie University professor Lauren Sheehan specializes in tourism management and sustainability. Sheehan says Canadians are now 20% less likely to travel to the U.S. compared to last year.
If you look at land border crossing numbers, it's even more significant. Even fewer Canadians are crossing the border.
A shift from north-south tourism travel to a pattern of Canadians traveling more within our country may not be a short-term trend. According to Sheehan, concerns over tariffs and Donald Trump's threats to make Canada the 51st state are likely enough to keep many Canadians away from the U.S. for a prolonged period.
There's the economic piece, and then there's, quite honestly, the feeling of betrayal, not from Americans, but from the American administration.
For now, Bilodeau is happy to spend his tourism dollars in Canada. His phone is filled with pictures from his favorite places.
We got such a wide, large country.
Bilodeau encourages Canadians to follow his lead, travel cross-country, and see the sights Canada has to offer. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
The Edmonton Oilers are now the only Canadian team left playing for the Stanley Cup after the Toronto Maple Leafs postseason run came to a crushing end last night. But as CTV's Jeremy Sharon shows us, while the number of homegrown teams making a playoff push has dwindled, the number of businesses benefiting from all the sports action has been growing.
Another tough loss for the Leafs. But in the race for the Stanley Cup, the quest for success isn't just happening on the ice.
In terms of getting seats at the bar, it's starting to get a little bit more difficult, which, it's good for business, bad for all of us.
Fans filling bars and restaurants, boosting sales for some businesses across the country.
For restaurateurs and pizza delivery takeout, Canadian sports is huge. It's huge for all of us. It matters.
5 Canadian teams made the NHL playoffs this season, which hadn't happened since the 2016-17 season. 3 of them advanced to the second round, a first in over 2 decades.
They score!
And then there's the PWHL 2, a postseason push right to the end by the Ottawa Charge, sparking a further economic boost in the nation's capital.
Amazing. You're full, the restaurants are full, actually the entire park is full. So we all benefit from it, and it's just exciting to have it.
Now, just how much can a team's success help? Take the Edmonton Oilers, off to their second straight conference final. Last year, according to Explore Edmonton, the first 3 rounds of the team's playoff journey brought $179 million to the city's economy. But just like on the ice, this expert who specializes in the economy of sport says there are winners and losers in the hospitality game.
For all of those full places you're seeing, I'm going to show you in the coming 11 months a whole bunch of empty places when people get their credit card bills. All we're talking about is moving economic activity from one sector of the local economy to another sector.
Although it may be unclear just how much playoff runs like these help boost the economy as a whole, at bars and restaurants reaping the benefits, every extra game helps. Jeremy Sherrill, CTV News, Ottawa.
Coming up, concerns over artificial intelligence.
It is automating humans out of the loop. That's a good reason to be distrustful.
Is society becoming too dependent on AI? Plus, the historic children's show heading to a new home. Grand historic children's show, which has impacted many lives, is no longer at risk of fading to black. Netflix has inked a deal to air new episodes of Sesame Street on its streaming service. It comes months after Warner Brothers Discovery said it would not be renewing its deal for the show. The Netflix deal will also allow Sesame Street to continue to be seen on public broadcaster PBS. Sesame Street has been educating children for more than 55 years. Artificial intelligence is suddenly everywhere, prompting more Canadians to make use of it in our everyday lives. But as AI is developing at such a fast pace, it can be hard to see clearly what the implications for society might be. Here's CTV's Jean-Pierre Boschman on how Canadians are using the technology and how they feel about it.
What do Canadians use AI for?
Canadians use AI for a variety of purposes. In their jobs, they often use it to improve productivity.
Artificial intelligence is increasingly part of our lives and increasingly useful, say Canadians. A survey by Leger found 47% reported having used an AI tool in March, up from 30% a year ago. Still, many users don't trust AI when it comes to things like driverless vehicles or as a tool to teach children.
It is automating humans out of the loop. That's a good reason to be distrustful.
Experts have raised ethical concerns, issues with how the technology performs, and around baked-in bias for generative AI.
We want to think of AI as neutral and objective, but we already know it's trained on what people have said in the past, and people don't always say nice things.
And there's another concern. 84% of Canadians worry society is becoming too dependent on AI. That computes for the new Pope Leo XIV. He identified AI as posing a critical challenge to human dignity and says he chose his papal name because the last Leo, Leo XIII, served at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, warning against turning workers into mere commodities. Still, Ottawa has signaled the importance of Canada's technological future, creating the post of Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation. New MP Evan Solomon got that job. This at a time when 86% of Canadians say the AI sector should be regulated by government to ensure ethical and safe use.
Artificial intelligence has the capacity to exert massive influence over what we think, both individually and as a collective. We need to ensure that there's accountability around and transparency around how AI is being deployed.
With the sector rapidly developing, analyzing the impact of AI is still very much a work in progress. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
Still ahead tonight, why this beloved riverboat is now docked indefinitely. A beloved riverboat tourist attraction in Saskatoon looks to be tied up to the dock for the season. Low water levels and high sandbars are to blame, but this goes well beyond a boat ride. As Alison Bamford explains, the drought conditions could have major impacts elsewhere.
For 13 years, Mike Steckhands captained the Prairie Lily on the South Saskatchewan River. This summer was set to be the last before the owners retire.
Obviously, it's a vessel, but it's been a vessel for a lot of friendship, a lot of enthusiasm.
But right now, the vessel is docked. Years of silt accumulation in the water have canceled the sailing season.
We can't actually sail anywhere because the river valley is full of sand. It needs a flush.
Water levels at Lake Diefenbaker, where the flush would come from, are above normal for this time of year. But Saskatchewan's Water Security Agency says not enough water is coming in to justify a release.
The last couple years, it's been dry, and we want to make sure that we're well positioned to have, the reservoir at a level that we need to meet the needs of all Saskatchewan people.
The South Saskatchewan River gets 99% of its water from Alberta, most from melting snow in the Rockies. But this year's snowpack is low and melting early.
It looks drier than 2023 did, and that was a very severe drought throughout the whole river system in Alberta and Saskatchewan.
In the past, droughts led to restricted irrigation in southern Alberta and has potential to reduce hydropower generation. Bigger problems flow further downstream. Back in 2023, Cumberland House declared a state of emergency due to low water levels in its reservoir.
So that's pretty severe when these things are happening.
Back on the riverboat, the Steckhands believe it's a management issue, not a water issue, and hope the agency reconsiders.
We're trying to work at it to make sure that we can sail this summer.
With captain and crew on board, just waiting for the all clear. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Still ahead, the friendly neighborhood litter man. How he's cleaning up and building up the community at the same time. He may not sport a cape or have any catchphrases, but one BC man is a bit of a superhero to his neighbors. CTV's Adam Sawatsky finds out how simply picking up litter is inspiring others.
Well, he's not faster than a speeding bullet or more powerful than a locomotive. Herbert Eaton is proving to be a superhero of sorts.
I just want to come out and enjoy my time picking garbage up.
And while he can pick up a bounty of butts in a single day,
300, sometimes I'll get more than that.
And demonstrates the ability to do it every day,
3 to 4 hours.
Herbert is too humble to reveal the true potential of his powers, but others are happy to try.
He does good things around here. Friendly, tries to be happy.
Always looking for someone to help.
Like when he discovered this handful of discarded credit cards and ID.
I'm going to try and turn it in somewhere or see if I can find a person.
And although he's never sported a costume, Herbert has been seen carrying groceries for people with mobility issues, sharing jokes with strangers who seem down, and giving food to the hungry.
He's just not judgmental. He treats everyone like their needs are important.
Now, you should know there's no death-defying origin story here. Herbert says he just started volunteering to do this one day because he was bored during the pandemic and hasn't stopped since.
It's fun picking up stuff, trying to keep the place clean.
And although people have offered him donations and gratitude, Herbert has never asked for anything in return.
And I'm just happy one day to say thank you for the great work you've done for us.
We appreciate it.
And keep it up.
But Herbert is most happy when neighbors like Danielle are inspired to join him in not just cleaning up, but building up the community.
So we feel like we're connected to something, so it's less isolating.
We can learn to make our community better and healthier.
It lifted my mood. Think about something else besides yourself and your own problems.
And perhaps that's Herbert's greatest power of all, showing you don't need to commit spectacles of service to be a hero. You can be super by simply helping others. Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, New Westminster.
A neighborhood superhero. That is our newscast. I'm Heather Butts. Thank you for watching. Omar is here tomorrow, and I'll see you again on Friday. Good night.